Hello, everybody. This is Brennan Detzner, and it's just me this time. I do not have a guest. This is Bad Grammar 7, and I'm really excited with how everything's been going with this little project so far. It's been a whole lot of fun, and I've got a lot of really cool things lined up, a lot of really cool people lined up for the next few months, but just the way the schedule worked out, nobody's quite available for this month, which is alright, because then that means I get to talk to you guys, which is a lot of fun. Trying to think what I have to tell you here. There's not really a whole lot going on with me. I'm still working on the novel that is set in the prison that some I believe I've blogged about a little bit and talked about other places. I'm still doing cult fiction. We got the next cult fiction show coming up on April 22nd, and I'm still shopping stories around, still trying to find a home for the previous novel, and just kind of doing my thing. Thank you so much for listening. This is just a good chance to, just thank everybody. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of really good feedback on this little project, and there's a lot of cool things that have been going on, and I'm really happy about it, so I want to let all you guys know. The story that I'm going to be reading right now is not something that has, quite as many wonderful anecdotes behind it. It's something I wrote for an anthology. I forget the name of the anthology. It was for some of the same people that were responsible for the Edge of Propinquity, and the theme of the anthology was urban legends explained by encounters with aliens, I believe was how exactly it went. So the following story was something I submitted to that anthology, and it did not get in. It failed. With looking back on it, since story turned out a little weird, which sometimes what happens when you pursue these themes. It isn't really a huge surprise, but I also kind of left me with sort of this unusual story that I really like and I think is really funny. That is unlikely to find a home anywhere else, but that's all right. So I get to share it with you right now. The story is called The Invasion, and here it is. The direction of Donnie's life had taken a lot from him, but one of the things that had given him back was time. Time to think, time to reconstruct what had gone wrong. Leaning against the fence near his apartment with the friends circumstances had forced him to make, staring into space, he found himself circling back around to three particular conversations. They were the conversations that had put him where he was now. They were the big ones. First, it was Thanksgiving, his older brother's house. Donnie was in the kitchen. He pulled a Mountain Dew out of a styrofoam cooler and heard his little nephew Jimmy laughing behind him. He turned around, smiling. The picture of himself that Donnie carried in his mind was of a good uncle, someone with a bit more authority and distance than an older brother, but also a dispenser of noogies and piggyback rides. He was a young buck, still untamed, but with the basic qualities that would later flower into fatherhood. A young man, but a man. "What are you laughing at?" Donnie said. Little Jimmy pointed at the can his uncle was holding and laughed some more. "You know what that does, right, Uncle Donnie?" "No, kid, why don't you tell me?" "You know." "No, I don't." Then he remembered. "Oh, you're worried you're not going to get any cousins if I drink too much?" Little Jimmy kept laughing. Donnie put the can down on the counter and got Jimmy in a headlock. They wrestled for the short time it took Donnie to pin Jimmy to the ground and tickle him. "Well, if it makes you feel better, I'll try something else." Donnie got up and pulled another can at random. The can was bright purple, almost pink. It was called Bermuda Juice, and it was not a brand of soda Donnie had ever seen before. He opened it and took a sip. It was delicious. As soon as he finished one, he wanted another. He drank more than a dozen over the course of the holiday, a number matched by most of the other men in the family. Bermuda Juice was really good soda. Over the course of the next few months, Bermuda Juice would become Donnie's favorite beverage, supplanting any other kind of soft drink and even beer. His reaction was not unusual. Everybody loved Bermuda Juice. Second, 3 years later, Donnie had married Sandy. It didn't bother him that they were both young. Donnie had had sex with many women, and his sexual potency was widely acknowledged by his brother and his friends, and more subtly by his parents and coworkers. If he wanted to settle down at an early age, no one would ever think it was because he was surrendering or because he could no longer compete in the marketplace. That part of his life had simply run its course. It was time for him to move on. He wanted to get started on a family as soon as possible, and it was here that his plans hit a snag. Donnie couldn't get Sandy pregnant. They had seen doctors and had tests performed, but nothing seemed to be physically wrong with either of them. It just wasn't happening. It was late at night. Donnie had left their bedroom to go and get a consolatory post-coital can of Bermuda Juice. When he got back, Sandy was watching The Tonight Show. The much-anticipated Master Lord Xenomorph Felicia Silverstone interview was on tonight, and it was an open secret that they were planning on publicly announcing their sexual relationship. The aliens had made their presence known months ago. The impact of the big reveal had largely been blunted by the rumors that had been steadily gaining in volume for almost a year prior to that. By the time of the press release, everybody knew the score already, and to dwell on the matter any further was considered unsophisticated. The aliens had taken refuge on our planet a few years ago, had disguised themselves as human beings and large dogs until they could be sure of their safety, and had covertly started several businesses in order to earn a living in their new home. They were peaceful, and, after revealing themselves, completely open and candid about all their activities. No one had any real problem with them. This didn't mean people were entirely comfortable with the idea of human-alien sex. Again, there had been rumors, whispers on the margins of society, but people didn't really know, didn't have to confront their feelings on the subject if they didn't want to. Donnie and Sandy watched the interview and turned off the set shortly afterward. "Fucking weird," Donnie said. "I don't know," Sandy responded. "They aren't hurting anyone." "Fucking weird," Donnie repeated. "I wonder what she's getting out of it." "Well, she's back in the news. It'll probably be good for her career." "But I don't think it's that, really. I think there are some real feelings there. You saw them. They're in love." "I can't believe I'm listening to this." "It's not so strange. Master Lord is the leader of his species. He's powerful. Women are attracted to that. And there's something about him. He's got presence, you know?" "Well, I'm sorry if I'm not—" He stopped. He realized that he'd raised his voice, and that Sandy was giving him the look she gave him when he was banished to the couch. He didn't bother arguing. He knew the routine. It had been happening often enough lately. He left the room. There was a part of him that was glad he no longer shared a bed with his wife all that often anymore. It made it easier to hide the fact that it was getting harder for him to get an erection. Third, months later. Alicia Silverstone was guaranteed box office gold. Her relationship with the Master Lord had come to an end, but her association with the Xenomorphs had carried over into a successful series of romantic comedies revolving around human-alien couplings. It was not quite 100% acceptable for a human woman to openly express desire for an alien, but you could drop hints. You could make jokes about what they could do or were capable of. It was a running joke on The View. The media was behind the curve. Donnie had long suspected this to be true, and conversation at a recent fraternity reunion he'd attended had confirmed it. At least 3 of his brothers had admitted to him that they suspected their wives or girlfriends were fucking xenomorphs on the sly, and he was sure there were many more who were either clueless about what was going on or were scared to admit it. The threat was real. And in Donnie's case, it was greatly magnified by his failure to perform, a secret shame he was certain was unique to him and which he had not shared with anyone. Romantic love had never played a large part in Donnie's worldview, not even when his relationship with Sandy had gotten serious. As far as he had been concerned, the two of them were doing what came naturally, and no further explanation was needed. But now he embraced the idea with the fanaticism of the recently converted. Sandy would not cheat on him because he and Sandy were in love. In all of existence, there was only Sandy for Donnie, and only Donnie for Sandy. Their special connection would overcome all obstacles. This bond between them, if it ever existed at all, was destroyed by Donnie's discovery of a thin layer of translucent green slime covering the back seat of the convertible he'd bought her as an anniversary present. He confronted her when she got home from work, expecting either tears or angry denials. Instead, she seemed relieved. "I'm a woman, Donnie," she said, her tone suggesting he might not know what that meant. "I have needs." She left to go stay with her mother. Not long after, Donnie was served with divorce papers. Sandy got the house. Upon returning to the single life, Donnie found that he was not alone. The bars and bowling alleys and vacant lots of the city were full of guys like him, all with different versions of the same story. Together they watched the world change around them. Human-on-human sex was increasingly regarded as an understandable but less than realistic fantasy, like participating in a racially diverse threesome. Even the pornography that occupied more and more of Donnie's time tended to feature aliens now. They were talking about giving them citizenship so they could run for office. It was increasingly difficult to take human politicians seriously as their wives ran out on them one after the other. Donnie stood up long enough to put his hands in his pockets, then leaned back against the fence. He listened to the chatter of the men around him. They were mostly talking about who was gay and who wasn't. Many of them had openly turned to homosexuality, but not as many as you might think. It was much more common to keep what you were doing a secret. The guys who were the most eager to throw accusations around were inevitably the ones who were up to something themselves. For Donnie, sneaking off with another guy was still a bridge too far, but he wasn't as certain about it now as he had been even a month ago. He was lonely. With the speed and suddenness of a gunshot, all conversation ceased. Donnie jumped and looked around. It was almost too much to hope for. He prayed it wasn't a false alarm. It wasn't. It was a woman, walking down the sidewalk. Her hips were wide and bulged out in an odd way, and her face was pockmarked and asymmetrical, each of her cheeks curving in a slightly different fashion. But none of that mattered. She was here, actually physically present. She was a woman. Woman, 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 woman. She was showered with whistles and hay babies as she walked past, pausing every so often to give the gift of a half smile before she kept going. A black limousine pulled up about a block ahead of her, and an alien got out. The aliens looked more or less like what the Roswell posters and cable documentaries and mini-seasons of The X-Files had taught everyone to expect, the main difference being their height. They were all somewhere between 6 and 7 feet tall, and the skeletal broadness of their shoulders, which made their bodies look T-shaped when they were undressed and like inverted triangles when they wore the tailored suits they increasingly favored. The alien looked back and forth, his neck twitching as he changed the direction of his gaze. His face was completely expressionless. He opened one of the rear doors of the car as the woman approached. She smiled at him slyly and bent over to climb inside. The xenomorph smacked her on the ass. She giggled. She got into the car. The alien slammed the door shut and they drove off. There was a moment of silence. It subsided, and the men of Earth continued their sad conversation. And that is all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week we are going to have Fred Burkhardt, the recent Windy City Story Slam champion, on this here podcast. Not next week, next month rather. The month following that, we're going to have the wonderful Patty Templeton coming on in. And after that, there's going to be some more surprises. If you're interested in checking out my work and what I'm doing, you can check out my website at www.brendandetzner.com. It's also where you can check the further editions of the Bad Gamer podcast and also any stories that are posted online or available anywhere. And you can also keep updated on what I'm doing over at brendandetzner.livejournal.com or on my Facebook fan page. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful evening. Take it easy. Good night. Bad Grammar is released according to a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial 3.0 Unported license. You can get the new Bad Grammar at iTunes and in the Listen section of Brendan Detzner Online the first week of every month. If you'd like to support Bad Grammar, thank you very much. We're good, but we would encourage you, if you're feeling generous, to go ahead and check out www.protect.org to learn more about a cause that we wholeheartedly support. Our theme music is lovingly provided to us by the Gotsicles. You can find out more about the Gotsicles over at www.gotsicles.com. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you here next month.